Good evening and welcome to our Smyrna Town Council workshop to set our agenda for our October meeting. Before we move into our items for discussion, I'm going to ask Steve Sullivan to do our prayer and Chief Culberson, if you'll do our pledge for us. Y'all stand, please.
Dear Lord, thank you for today. We thank you for the town of Smyrna and the citizens and the leadership that we have, Lord. We ask that you continue to bless our town, be with those directors and leaders in our town as they run the day-to-day and help them to continue to make the best decisions possible for all of the citizens. We ask that you bless this proceeding tonight and that everything that would be done would be pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Raise the flag, please.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chief. We'll now move into our items for discussion. We have 20 items on the agenda tonight. Our first one is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with Sessions Paving to perform roadway patching throughout town. Hey, Tom.
Mayor, Council. We went out to bid for our pothole repair, and Sessions Paving is currently the contractor who has that bid, has that annual contract with us. They were the only bidder on this one, and prices were reasonable as far as what they've gone up with, so we are recommending Sessions for approval of that contract.
Questions for Tom on this? Okay, seeing none, we will put that on the agenda and move on to item 2, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with Janie King for the annual janitorial services contract. Tom?
Yes, we had, this is an annual contract that's currently held by Mint Condition. We went out to bid, and bids had come in. It was 50% of the evaluation points were based on price. The others were based on references and similar work experience. The committee evaluated each of the respondents, and Janet King was ranked first out of the respondents. We have worked with them a little bit to bring their overall price down somewhat, because it was a little bit more than what we had currently budgeted for in each of the departments. I have talked to the department heads who oversee those line items for wastewater, water treatment plant, as well as Town Event Center, SOAC, and Town Hall, and they are okay with the additional money for this fiscal year, going a little bit above what that line item is going to be.
Questions for Tom on this? Okay. We'll move on to item 3, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement relative to the install of a new traffic signal at the intersection of Amaville Road and 1 Mile Lane. Tom?
Yes, this is currently out to bid. You don't have a contract in front of you. I talked to Brian. We put this in a placeholder because we do want to get that signal put up as soon as possible. The bids are coming in on October 4th. So we will evaluate those bids once those come in and make a recommendation, and you will have a contract for the council meeting.
Okay, so this is just our placeholder for this item.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When do you think you'll get those?
October 4th at, I believe, 9 a.m. is when those
Okay.
proposals will come in.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with Kimberly Horn for NEPA and design for the CRISA grant project for upgrades to sidewalks along Old Nashville Highway from Enon Springs to Rock Springs Road.
Yes, thank you. This is the, like I said, as part of the CRISA grant. We got a little over $1 million for that to refurbish the sidewalks along the Old Nashville Highway, going from Rock Springs Road down to Enon Springs. Kimberly Horn, who had done our ADA self-evaluation previously, was ranked first, and then this is the contract that they submitted to do that project for a total of $254,100.
Questions for Tom on this one?
Is that both sides of the road or just?
Yes, it's both sides.
Okay. Item 5 is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute change order number 3 for the ITS Phase 1 and 2 projects.
This is a change order for an additional $15,580.74. TDOT wants to be able to interconnect almost on a consistent basis with the Centrex program that operates our ITS system. In order to do that, we have to take Centrex off of our server, which also would give anybody like an open door into the rest of our ITS or IT system. So what this does is it gives us some funding to be able to purchase the servers necessary to take our Centrex server, put on a completely, our Centrex program and put it on a completely separate server so that as TDOT interacts with it, they won't be able to get into the rest of IT server. As you can see, this project is still coming in under budget at under budget by $101,436.29, and this is fully refundable by TDOT, or reimbursable.
Questions for Tom on the ITS? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Blastoff Incorporated to repaint the aircraft at the Captain Jeff Cush USMC Memorial.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a RFP that we sent out to several vendors and only got one proposal back from Blastoff Inc. They're out of Alabama, South Alabama. It's actually the group that we got the name from the museum down in Pensacola, so it worked out good. They've got a detailed explanation. If you read through your packet, you're going to see they did pretty much a takeoff from scratch to completion. I thought they did a great job, and they seemed to know their business. We did call some references and make sure they were good there, and then the references they submitted were very strong. I would point out the funds for this project, the cost of the project is $56,602.06, and it would come out of the Cush Memorial Fund. So there's a fund set aside, fundraising that the town's been doing that would pay for that.
So I'm not sure people realize how much it costs to repaint a plane, but when you're looking at $57,000, that's the reason we put the run on, and that's the reason that we try to have a good time in what we're doing with the night run, but it's for a pretty good cause of the upkeep of the memorial. So I just had somebody send me an email not too long ago. It said it was looking a little dull, and I said, give us a little time. We're trying to get it painted. So,
Yes, ma'am.
questions for Mike on this?
I noticed in the packet it said it will only take them a couple of weeks to perform the work.
Right.
Do we expect that to happen this fall still?
Yes, sir, and I was going to go into that. I told them that's hopefully going to be approved on October 11th at the council meeting. They would like to come in right after that. They've been planning as such.
Okay.
I know we have Veterans Day to deal with, and we're aware of that. But their total time was 24 days, I think, when I look back in the packet. But they would like to do that. They are set up to where if they have to, I hate to say encapsulate, but if they need to do that, they can. Hopefully, it won't come to that. But
Gotcha.
the weather's going to dictate what they can and can't do.
That's why I was wondering, temperature turns off, and I assume, we need to be 70 degrees or better and
Yes,
that kind
sir.
of stuff, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
it has to be a certain degree, obviously, but I think it's what they want to do.
So we're gonna try to get it in before winter.
Yeah, I would like to, yes, sir. Spring, you just don't know. It may be May, June before you able to get up there, They will, I would like to add that we'll basically give them that site for that time, and they've got complete control of that.
Yeah, so you guys, I assume, will close or reroute sidewalks around it, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll work with them and
So
see what they need.
Community should expect that
Right.
and respect it, hopefully.
Sure. And
Gotcha.
hopefully we can make a route where they can always come through one way or another.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Plane's been up there how long?
Was it, when we set that, 2018?
Wow.
But
We
remember, it
anticipate-
sat in the thing for almost a year, so.
We anticipate having to repaint it every 5 years, 4 years.
Yeah, and they said that varies. I'd say up there, due to that western sun, it hits that one
Yeah.
side.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
see it's a little
Every
bit more
day.
dull than the other side. And we've waxed that thing, and within 30 days, it'll dull out again, They did
Y'all
want me
do
to-
wax it?
We have, yes.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
washed it before the race, but I would add that if you read through the packet, it's not a A-grade paint job. It's usually a B or C, and they wanted to state that. It's just hard to get that back on a repaint.
Well, and the other thing is, I don't know, and Amber, you may remember, I don't think they repainted it before we got it. So I don't know when the last time it had actually been.
They did not. The only thing they added was the number 6 on the tail, and then they allowed us to add Captain Kuz's name.
Name.
But as far as the plane, it came right out of the sky to us.
Right.
So
So,
So we really don't know the last time it was painted.
we don't.
correct.
They're specific about that paint as well, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Amber was a big help. She called Lenore and make sure it was okay, what we were doing.
Well, and you've got to remember, it's on permanent loan, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we keep it in great condition. So
Yeah,
we
part of
never
the-
want to do anything to.
Yeah, that was part of the contract to get it from the
Right.
Navy. We got to maintain it, so that's
Right.
part of it. And fortunately, you know, our 6K race has been very well received, very, very good responses every year. And so right now, we've got enough money in that fund to continue to maintain the plane for a number of years. So as long as that race keeps generating the funds that it is, and you know, ultimately, it really won't cost the taxpayers anything. It's all coming from that fund. So I think that's important, is that we're maintaining it, and the city agreed to maintain it, but it's not coming out of city's budget.
Right.
Correct. Okay. Any other questions about repainting of the plane? Are we going to try to do a time-lapse video of it? I know Chief helped us with that last time, didn't you, of when the plane?
Sounds like we're going to do
Of course.
time-lapse video.
That's what I heard. Yes,
I just think
ma'am.
it'd kind of be cool, so.
We can do that.
Okay. Okay,
thank you.
item 7, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an educational service agreement with Middle Tennessee State University. You gonna take this?
Mayor and Council, Jeff and I met with some representatives from Middle Tennessee State University, and I think, Todd, you were in there with us. They wanted to propose to us a contract that kind of establishes an agreement between the town and Middle Tennessee State University. It's not a binding from the standpoint everybody has to go to MTSU kind of thing, but what it does is gives us the privilege of working directly with the College of Non-Traditional Studies, where we can bypass registrations. They offer a discount. So if we have a firefighter or a police officer or someone that works in administration wants to go back for some classes, they help us set the schedules outside the scope of having to go to the university like some of us did years ago and, you know, go through the process to get a class and those kind of things. And there are some discounts related to the cost of the educational opportunities. We felt like this was a good choice for us, and it's a great benefit for our employees that are looking for educational opportunities. So we would like to ask the council and mayor to allow us to enter into this contract.
I think it's one more thing to have in our toolbox as we're recruiting people and trying to retain people, so.
And I will say that they're working with the other municipalities in the county as well. I'm not sure how far along they are with those, but Jeff has reviewed our contract and felt good about what we were proposing, so.
Great. Any questions on this? Okay, we will put that on the agenda and move on to item 8, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the contract for the Tennessee Highway Safety Office grant. Hey, Chief.
Ma'am, how are you?
Good.
This is our annual contract that we do every year with the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, and it provides money to pay for overtime for the officers on some DUI saturation, other type of traffic safety concerns, and also gives us a little bit of money for some equipment. But we do it every year with the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
Questions for Chief on this?
Thank you, Chief, for going after grants like this. About $50,000, and it's.
Exactly. It's Andy Miller, and Andy does a really good job with this.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, item 9, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a renewal agreement with Motorola for the police department's radio system.
Yes, ma'am. This is our annual service agreement that we do every year on our radio system for the town, and we do it with Motorola, who's very responsive to our needs.
Questions for Chief on the renewal agreement? Okay, item 10 is consideration and approval of modification to the police department standard operating policy 5-7, Handle with Care program.
Yes, ma'am. The Handle with Care program is a program that is very near and dear to me. And what it is when our officers are out on calls and they deal with a child that's involved in a traumatic event, we have in our system where the officer will email the school board and basically say, handle with care little Kevin Arnold at 100 Hazelwood Drive, or whatever. And in turn, the school system knows that this child was involved in something with the police department. And what we've done is we've done some modifications on this policy.
Great.
And I would like to say we are the only department in this county right now that is doing that program.
I'll be honest, I had no idea, and I think it's something important.
We've
You
been doing
never
it for
know
about 2 or 3 years now. And
what some of those babies have to go through and then get up the next morning and go to school is.
exactly. So when
unimaginable.
the child's going to sleep, at least they didn't know that the child's been up all night because of whatever's been happening in that
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, so I was looking through it and I see that one of the changes was a QR code being provided now.
Yes.
Instead of having to formulate that email, officers can scan this QR code, it gives them a menu, they put in the info and it's automatic.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, with
It's a
Mr.
great-
Hercules' help, all the officers now have smartphones, so they can scan that instead of the old flip phones like they did have.
Yeah.
And they can scan that QR code and it goes straight to that.
Yeah, I like that. It'll make it a lot easier for them to do it. And
Exactly.
if it's easier, they're gonna be more responsive.
prone to do it,
Yeah,
yes.
more responsive to it,
Yes.
right. So perfect.
Okay. Other questions for Chief? Chief, tonight is your last meeting with us here. Are
Yes,
you gonna,
ma'am.
are you gonna come back at every council meeting and workshop?
Probably not.
Oh,
But I've told Amber earlier, I will definitely watch.
well, we
Because,
will,
again, this is my town. It will always be my town, and I want to stay informed and stay involved.
well, we appreciate that. We appreciate all of your years of service.
Thank you very much.
And individually, how you have helped each one of us and helped to make the town a better place. You've added to the foundation of the police department that
Mm-hmm.
those that came before you, and it's definitely going to be hard shoes to fill, but we're going to be celebrating you next week, but we've been glad to have you.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Okay, any questions for Chief on any of this? Okay, then we will move on to item 11, consideration of an ordinance amending Title V Municipal Finance and Taxation, Section 806, Advertising and Bidding of the Municipal Code to allow an increase in bid limits. This will be a second reading. Jeff?
Yes, Mayor and Council, it's not changed for a good many years by the state, and TCA 12-3-12-12 just changed this past year, which allows for competitive bidding to begin at $25,000 versus $10,000. And this would be an amendment to our ordinance, which would allow us to follow the law under those provisions.
Questions for Jeff on this? We kind of had discussion about it last time. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 12, which is consideration of an ordinance amending Title V Municipal Finance and Taxation, Section 815, Contract Approval and Change Orders of the Municipal Code to allow an increase in bid limits. This is a second reading.
Yes, Mayor and Council, based upon the previous item, this would make it possible for any of those contracts or agreements that we have that do not have a liability of over $10,000, the town manager would be able to sign for those without having to wait 30 days to be presented to council, those types of things. Obviously, this did not prevent town manager from advising you, as he always does, of what he's doing, what the departments may be buying, but for things like maybe a copier, could be any sort of items that come along, would make it just more efficient if the town manager had the authority to do that, and that's what this does.
Questions for Jeff on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll put that on the agenda and move on to item 13, which is consideration of an ordinance amending ordinance number 21-22 to adopt the fiscal year-end 2022 budget amendments. This is a second reading.
Mayor and Council, I'm taking this tonight. Rex and his staff are in a continued learning event in Murfreesboro, so he was not able to be here. Basically, you've got in front of you the amendment changes on your packet. Nothing has changed since the first look, and I think this is second reading, so nothing has changed.
Questions for Brian on anything? Okay, seeing
Thank
none,
you.
we'll move on to item 14. Wait, I may have one
No, you
then.
don't. It's too late, we're already past that.
Item 14 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, parcel 72.00 to go from C2 to PCD. It's requested by Frank Mawalski. The property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 71/100ths of an acre and is located at the corner of President's Place and Isabella Lane, and this is a second reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a rezoning request. All the surrounding property is zone C2, but this is a rezoning request to change this parcel to PCD. It is for a quick service oil and lube business, about a 2,984 square foot building, has 4 service bays. Building would be a mix of brick and EFS and does meet design review. Access would be from Isabella Lane in a couple of locations. Southern access would be a full access, but the northern access would be an egress only. As a part of this PCD, there is a couple of setback waivers that would be included as part of the request regarding from Isabella Lane as well as from the side property line. This is quite a bit less than what the original request was, but there is still a waiver or a variance request on the setback there. The Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval. Nothing has changed on it since you looked at it on first reading.
Questions for Kevin on this? It is an odd-shaped lot,
Yes,
so,
it's kind of what was left when
yeah,
Home Depot and everything built and the road came through. It was
Yeah.
what was left.
okay. Okay, then we'll move on to item 15, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 29, parcel 17.03, and part of parcel 17.02 to go from PUD to PUD with an H2 height overlay. It's requested by Bob Hackle. The properties requested to be rezoned contain approximately 3.54 acres and are located north of Industrial Boulevard, and this is our second reading.
Yeah, this is not, it is a PUD amendment. It would add a height overlay for this area. It is not does not change any of the allowed uses or anything like that. This is for a hotel to be located in this area. Would be taller than what is allowed. It would be a little over 45 feet tall, 45 feet, 2 1/4 inches. Which is what was shown on the architectural elevations that were submitted. The Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval, and again, nothing's changed on this since you looked at it on first reading.
Any questions on this? We kind of talked about it.
Question that came to mind when I was looking at this is that PUD square that's kind of landlocked back there now. I guess for anybody to develop that, they'll have to get some sort of right-of-way.
Yeah, it's actually not completely landlocked. There's a narrow sliver of land. It actually is included with the overall parcel. It's actually the detention pond for the area
Okay,
up
so
there.
that wouldn't develop anyway.
And so
Okay.
it's basically, and we made sure that it wasn't landlocked just because we wanted to be sure it was tied to
Okay.
a parcel of land for maintenance purposes.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
Now, there is one tract of land that does have frontage on the parking lot there that would still be available to be
Yeah,
developed.
right, the
Yeah.
H2,
Yeah, that area there.
yeah.
The R4 behind it, is all that owned by the county?
It's all owned by the county and part of the school property, yes.
Does it slope off?
Honestly, I haven't looked at the topo. I really don't know. It may. I know
Something just made me think that from there on, it just really went down. It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And maybe that dark line is where it really starts sloping.
Other questions or comments? Okay, we'll put that on the agenda and move on to item 16, consideration of an ordinance relative to the annexation and PUD zoning of property located on tax map 55, parcel 2.16, requested by Jennifer Speck on behalf of Leland Rex Wall, containing 16.5 acres. The property is located at 3368 Amiable Road, and this is a second reading.
the next three items are all tied to this to one development request, but it's two separate ordinances because part of it's being annexed and part of it was already within the town, so it had to be treated separately. This is a development that is proposed south of Morton Lane. This is from the annexation perspective. It's the northern parcel of this, kind of north of the creek that runs through the property there. The town would be providing all services here except for water, which would be provided by Consolidated Utility District. CUD has indicated there is adequate fire flow for residential development, but not commercial there. Sewer is not available to this property at this time. There would have to be a force main extended from the Amberton pump station and through over to this site. There is an existing house and several detached accessory structures located on this parcel currently. The proposed PUD, which again is with this parcel, the blue parcel as well as the red parcel, which is already within the town, as shown on the map there, is basically the overall PUD. The existing approved PUD is within town is 66 townhomes with several commercial uses and horse stables and the winery. The proposed PUD is for a mixed-use development, which would have 78 single-family lots, 84 townhomes, and 114 villas/zero lot line units. And then about 2.1 acres of the overall PUD would be commercial, which would be kind of the extreme southeastern corner of that area, which would basically be C4 type uses. There's quite a bit of amenities. There was a traffic study required. It was submitted, and they would be making some improvements to Almaville Road at their entrance based on that traffic study, if this is approved. The Planning Commission did recommend approval with about 5 conditions. And again, none of this has changed. Nothing has changed on this since you looked at it on first reading.
Questions for Kevin?
We talked about this quite a bit the last time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits we're seeing here too is we're adding to our 55-plus restricted community. So we have a big calling for that now, and I'm glad to see a product change here because before it was nothing but towns. Now we've got single family and 55-plus in there, which is really attractive. So
And a fair amount of green space.
a lot of green space.
A lot of green
Yeah.
space.
Walking trails and everything
Yeah.
too.
Okay, we'll move on to item 17, consideration of a resolution relative to a plan of services for property located on tax map 55, parcel 2.16. Kevin?
Yes, this is just a plan of services that goes with the annexation of this parcel of land. Again, the town would be providing all services here except for water, which would be provided by CUD.
Okay, and this one goes along with it as well. Consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of the approved PUD for tax map 55, parcel 29.02, requested by Jennifer Speck. The property requested to be amended contains approximately 37 acres and is located at 3545 Amaville Road, and this is a second reading.
Yeah, this is just a parcel of land which is already within the town, where the winery is currently located, and this would just be tied to the parcel to the north for the overall development. So this would be actually just a PUD amendment for that parcel, as I discussed with the previous item.
Questions for Kevin on this? Okay. We'll put that on the agenda, and we will now move to item 19, which is discussion regarding food permits for food trucks. And I know we talked about last time wanting more, the majority of the council here, and I think with 6 of us being here and with Jerry being out, I think we're okay if y'all are good to move forward with having discussion. Right.
Yeah, we had talked about this previously, and you all asked for some additional information on some things. One of that being, what we charge for town events and things like that. We don't charge, if someone has a food truck, they can go to a town event such as Halloween in the Park, 4th of July, Barbecue Fest, those kind of things, without having the food permit or food truck permit in their hands. All they have to do there is just talk with the Parks Department and pay the vendor fees and those kind of things. And so that is something that was the information that was talked about and was asked for. There is, in looking at it, Smyrna, as far as the food truck permit fee, we are more expensive now than as some of the other communities have lowered their fees. So I can understand why we might want to think about it. I personally, it's just my recommendation to not change. And my thinking on that is purely just because a brick and mortar store that's here is invested in our community more than a food truck. That's just my opinion. I mean, they own a building, they pay rent or whatever it is. And whether that's the local business that we have a lot of, or the chain restaurants or whatever, it's all the same to me. So I'm not against food trucks. I'm not saying we should try to keep them out or anything like that. I just, with the fact that they can come and work town events, and all they have to pay is the vendor fee. And then just because of my feelings on the brick and mortar stores that are here. So, but again, if this council wants to change it, obviously we'll administer whatever you all would like us to do, so.
Comments from council?
So I actually was the one who asked that this be reviewed again, because there was an event that I was a part of, and we were having food trucks come, and they were, and actually one of them actually has a brick and mortar, but they also have a food truck. But it was more expensive for them to do a permit for the truck to come to the park. And so they decided they didn't want to do that just to come to this one event. And what was said was they could go to other municipalities and they didn't charge as much. So I thought it deserved at least another review to see if it was something we wanted to look at changing. I understand that if it is a town sponsored event, that no, they do not have to purchase an actual permit. But I guess then my concern is if it's an event, and for the situation I was in, we were in the park, but it's not considered a town event. So if we had more than 3 or more, we were gonna have to do a food truck rally permit, and then they were also gonna have to have an individual permit. So I was concerned about having to spend that type of money for just this one event. So that was why I brought it back up.
Yeah, and again, I understand, and other communities obviously have lowered their fees, so I mean, maybe that's the thinking there. And again, we'll administer whatever this council wants us to do, but that was just my recommendation.
I'm looking at a couple of these, like Lebanon, technically it's lower, but $100 annually and a $50 inspection fee, we're talking about $50 lower. So we're not talking about a tremendous amount of money. And Nashville's $25 a day. If you operate 8 days in Nashville, you're going to be at the $200 we're charging. So I wouldn't really consider either one of them that much lower. The others, Murfreesboro, Brentwood, doing the $50 annually, that's pretty low. I'm not even sure why they charge a permit fee. I don't know what that $50 is needed for or what it covers. You might as well just do it for free. But I see your point. I don't know if we wanted to. I'm only aware of one instance where we have a brick and mortar in the town that also has a food truck. So I don't know if we want to consider an exception for those type of establishments. Just because they are invested in our town, they are here. If they want to also sell, then maybe they shouldn't also have to pay the food truck fee since they're already paying the brick and mortar. Maybe for that. Actually, Jose's Kitchen and Cousins may both have food trucks. I'm not sure, but there may be a couple that would be my only thought process in the change at all, is if they are a brick and mortar and also run a food truck, then maybe they're some sort of exception for that permit fee. But otherwise, if they're coming from outside the area, I think the permit fee is warranted.
And I understand where you're coming with that, about ones that are here. My only concern with that is how much work does that put on staff
I don't know.
for?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that would entail. It's just that was my only ones.
Yeah, I mean, we could, if they, I don't know, because it's not a huge, we've had 14 In 2022, we permitted 14 food trucks, so that's how many. It's not a huge number, 14 for the entire year.
Do we know how many of those have a brick and mortar in Smyrna?
I do not. That's something we could easily find out.
I'll be honest with you, I think $200 is very reasonable for a small business. I agree with what you said, Kevin, that they are competition for a brick and mortar. If it was a significant amount of money and it was $200 an event or whatever, then I would say let's look at it. But when you're looking at $200 for a calendar year for somebody to be able to operate within the town, I think that's a pretty fair amount.
Would that include if someone had a wedding and they were at a wedding event venue and they catered in using a food truck, then that truck would have to provide, or obtain a permit?
Technically, they should, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's really, that's the only exception is the town events. That's
Yeah, well,
really-
and, you know, to add to what Mayor Ester's saying, I think it's important that we clarify too, that if they don't have a brick and mortar in the town of Smyrna, then they're not obligated to pay the town of Smyrna taxes for those sales. They're not paying sales tax. So although there's citizens in the town spending it, that sales tax revenue goes back to their home address. If they're out of Nashville or they're out of Knoxville, it doesn't matter. That's where the sales tax dollars go. So the $200 is not only because of the investment that more brick and mortar, but it's also the only way that the town of Smyrna gets sales tax out of that, or any tax out of that.
It's a complicated issue, and I very much can appreciate, you know, where it's a one-off type event, and somebody says, you know, I don't want to spend $200 to buy a permit because I could do it in another jurisdiction for $50, and it makes a lot of sense. But I will tell you, I had a conversation just last week with a gentleman that came in here. He wants to put a food truck in Smyrna. He wanted to pay the $200, and his plan was to operate that food truck 365 days in one location. And we've got a caveat where they can only be up to 35 days in one location so that you don't get that competition for the brick and mortar and somebody with a lower cost, you know, facility in a food truck, you know, establishing a business in town and bypassing all the regulations. So
Yeah, well,
it's a complicated issue. It's,
A few years ago, when we put this in place, we had a couple of trucks in town that were literally sitting on blocks in parking lots. And that was what we
They
were
weren't moving.
specifically gearing those towards as well, is that, you know, there's all kinds of issues with that. And so that's part of the factor as well.
Well,
You know, I would-
the other part was, you know, we saw a rise in it during COVID days where we had neighborhoods asking for food trucks because restaurants were closed at that time.
you know, one thing we might consider is, you know, we have the yearly permit for somebody that's going to have a food truck and wants to operate within the town throughout the calendar year in different places. And you know, even if it's not more than 30 days, you know, that's a reasonable, would there be appetite maybe to consider if there was a one event? You know, they could get a one permit for an event that would be a lesser cost. But what it would equate to is if they come back and did 4, 5, 6 days at one-time events, it would meet the $200. So it's somewhat of a compromise and allows us to continue to have some control.
I think the only conversation would be, same thing Mayor Esther mentioned, is how bad is that for these guys to manage? I think you're right. I mean, like Nashville does $25 a day. So if you were gonna have a one-time event where you're gonna have somebody there for one day, and, you know, they don't anticipate coming back to the town of Smyrna for the next year, or then maybe one-day permit is not a daily permit's not a bad thing. I just don't know how big, where it would get sticky is, you know, how many, they've paid for 6 days, now they're only $50 from the 200,
And I think
who's
that's what we
gonna
have
keep
to
track
watch,
of
is
that,
if somebody
you know?
walked in and said, I want a 6-day permit, no, at that point, it would be, this is for a one-off event. You know, I'm just trying to find something that
Yeah.
would allow for a compromise. I mean, from the standpoint of the permit, you know, it's just coming in and applying for the permit, and us,
It's not a huge, I mean, we make sure there's some paperwork they have to provide us with as far as their health department stuff, just, we don't check it, but they have it, that they've gone to the health department, that they have, they check with the fire department, they have all their the extinguishers and everything that they need there. They have to provide, there's some things that they have to provide some paperwork. It's not a tremendous burden on us. It's because it's not like we have,
It's going to be, the bigger
20
burden
a
is going to
day
be if
coming
somebody
into it.
comes and gets a one-day permit and then they go to the park and participate in your event, and they think, oh, wow, I've got this permit, I'm going to go out Tuesday and do it,
Yeah.
and that's just one of those things we're
Right.
going to have to do our best to monitor. But that could happen today.
Yeah.
It's a matter of catching those. The only question I had, and Chief, from a fire department standpoint, what are we doing as far as inspection of the food trucks?
They have to come to be inspected before they go back to those to get their permit.
Are we charging anything for that inspection? But that's done at the fire department.
Yes, sir.
So again, once they're inspected, we're pretty good, so.
Steve, are you still asking for a carve-out for a brick and mortar that has?
It's just a suggestion that we want to consider. I'm not necessarily asking for it other than, is it something we want to consider? In this case, specifically to the case Raquel was bringing forward, it fit that instance, and that was really the only point.
Okay.
So I really think it's a one-off. I don't, like I said, I don't think
that's-
there's more than
I don't
one or
think-
two.
I don't think the problem's, anybody's got a brick and mortar and a food truck from the standpoint of operating their food truck. I think it's more about when we have those particular incidents where it's a one-time shot.
Yeah.
And I think that we could do, as long as they come in with everything ready to get the permit, giving them the permit and charging the whatever fee we put on it, whether it's $25 a day or $50 a day, whatever you guys decide, it's not that much of a burden, as long as they've got everything done and they've been to the fire department, they got their health permit, and they come in with that paperwork.
I guess I'm kind of landing where you originally were talking about, Steve, as far as if you do have a brick and mortar and you do have a food truck, I don't necessarily think that you have to pay for a food truck, fee to do that in addition to.
So you want that to be the exception?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just throwing it out here.
Kevin, another question is, and I don't know how relevant it really is, but this is $25 a day to operate in metro parks for Nashville. I mean, is that for the rest of the city also, or is that just in parks, or?
that's just in parks. And there's like 3 parks, I think, that they have, 2 or 3 parks that they basically have set up on Wednesdays at lunch in this particular park. That's the food truck day, and you pay $25, and it's kind of known and it's near areas where there's a lot of workers and offices and whatnot. That's the
For
only
rest
thing
of
I
the city,
could.
you don't know if they have a fee?
There's something within their street or public works department, they actually allow, you can be in right-of-ways in certain locations at certain times, but there's no fee or something like that. And it's first come, first served kind of thing. That's the only thing I could find anything in Nashville at all, was that $25 a day. And it's only for certain days of the week, and it's only in certain parks. It's not that you pay $25 and you can go to wherever park you want to go to.
Sound like that's best left alone.
Yeah. And actually, the gentleman who runs that for Metro is actually a Smyrna resident. That's why I found that out too. But just an aside.
Kevin, if you gave an exception to brick and mortar companies that wanted to do a food truck as well, how would you monitor how often they just take their trucks out and park it somewhere?
It's going to be, it's just going to be a codes inspector, police officer, somebody like that noticing it and saying, hey, they've been there every day for the last week.
I guess that's where I'm going with the
Yeah,
exception part, there's really no way to.
Yeah. And we have that today,
I was going to say, how do we currently monitor
It's
if
the same
somebody's
way.
within the X number of days that they're supposed to be?
It's going to be really, because it's 40 days, you can be up to 40 days in a location, so, it's going to be, if somebody is, if we have a situation where they're there every day and you see them there every day, at some point, you're going to notice, well, they've been there a month or longer, and you'll start having to track it, because we don't, we're not out there looking, we're not verifying every day if they're there or not, or anything like that. Once they get that
Some of our folks in codes, the property maintenance guys, they kind of, they know what the the story is, and they kind of keep an eye on it for us. It's one of those things that we don't have somebody out there every day counting days and riding the town, but we are watching it.
Well, I would think, again, brick and mortar and food truck, it would be subject to the same thing as far as a maximum amount of days it could be at any one location.
We still, when this went through BZA, we used to require the food trucks to identify the specific dates that they were going to be set up in the town. Does that still happen or no?
No, because this $200 fee is, they
For
could
the year,
operate,
up
they
to
could
40
technically
days
operate
always.
every day of the year as long as they weren't in the same place more than 40 days.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, no, we don't.
Yeah, but they're used
specify
to, I
anything
guess
like that.
we must have, when we must have got rid of that limit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was part of the request during the COVID time,
Yeah.
that trucks were, there was actually communities calling the trucks, asking them to come to their community, and we had no control, of that, so.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the council?
I kind of like both of the suggestions. I kind of like a carve out for brick and mortar, which again, I think there's very few of those in our town. But I also like the daily or the one-off permit for a specific event. The only caveat is just as long as you guys can manage that, right? I'm not wanting to add burden to you guys. I know you said it's not a big burden, but is it going to increase if maybe it's not a big burden because right now you got to pay $200, right? So.
Well, and the $200 is one time. They come in one time, we don't see them again for a year.
If we start doing $25 a day, you might have board and you.
It could happen that way. I mean, we could try and see. I don't really see this being something that's going to be really overloaded.
I will say
but-
this, if you'll notice, the Parks Department charges a vendor fee for Halloween in the park and barbecue fest and all that. I don't think those should go away.
No, I agree with those completely. Because I believe that also, that goes to the Parks Department, right? Isn't that where that money goes, Mike?
Yeah, but
it goes
in general fund.
Yeah. But I-
But that kind of keeps it level playing field too.
Well, no-
If somebody going to a private event, there's a fee. If they're doing it in the parks, there's also a small fee for that one-off, so.
As well as the ice cream vendors, I think that should stay in place as well.
Right.
Other council have anything to add?
Could I ask, how would you like for us to bring this back? Do you want us to go through the ordinance and kind of set the prices, or do you want to give us some direction?
Is it something you want to add to our fee schedule? So
It would have to be something to add to the fee schedule as far as the daily fee, for sure.
That way it's an annual thing as part of the regular process.
Right.
And the ordinance, I mean, I guess you could bring it back as an ordinance to allow for a daily fee and it's set in the fee schedule, if that's what we're going to do.
Well, and I think the annual should stay the same. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting any
Oh, I
changes
know.
to any of the others.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is the annual fee would stay the same for anyone who wants a yearly permit. If there is the opportunity for a one-off, like in using your event, we need to just set a number of what we want that one-off to be. And, Nashville's charging 25, there's some others that are charging 50. Do we want to be 25? Do we want to be 50? And then what we can do is write into this ordinance a reduction of anybody that has a brick and mortar would be exempt from the permit fees. So,
Mike, just curious, you've got two different numbers. Halloween in the Park's 35, Barbecue Fest is 50. Is there any logic to those numbers, or is that just kind of what you came up with?
Halloween in the park, we charge a low fee because we asked them to bring a couple $100 worth of candy. So we've kept that low, and now candy's way up, so that's the only reason. And for years, we didn't have a fee for Independence Day. We finally implemented one, the $50 fee.
I was kind of thinking about those numbers because we would be
to
consistent.
be consistent,
Yeah,
yes.
if we're charging $50 for one
Would that
event
work?
at the 4th of July, then $50 a day for one-off events. Just kind of seems
I think
logical.
it's a good place for us to land. Then it keeps consistent with what we're doing in the park,
Sure,
so.
yeah.
We can bring that back we'll work with Jeff and everything and get it documented and get it back to you, but we'll work on those three parameters.
Perfect. Thank you.
You good?
And for
Everybody good
brick
with
and
it?
mortar, I think we need to put some things in there, whether it's that they're in good standing, that they are operating, you know what I mean? All of those things
Yeah.
that,
Sure.
Yeah, the exemption is the fee, not the rule.
Well, and
Right,
I
they
think,
still abide by
yeah,
everything
and I
else
think we have to
in place.
abide by the other rules, because we don't want that to become a secondary location
Right.
at a
Absolutely.
zero.
Exactly, exactly. Or, they set it up in their parking lot, forever.
okay.
Okay.
Other questions or comments on this? Are you going to bring this back to another workshop?
Yeah,
or-
we'll run it through the system, because it may take us a little time to get this all worked
Absolutely.
out.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions or comments on this? Okay, we'll move on to other. Brian, anything under other
No,
before I
ma'am.
move on to directors? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Al? Chief? Steve? Guess who's coming to the mic?
All right, thank you, Mayor. Things are looking much better. Lee Victory Rec Park, our contractor has come back on with the help of the surety on that. They finished most of the dirt work, finished the sidewalks and curbs today, looking to pave into next week and then landscaping into October. Lowry Street, we've gotten most of the curb in, the flowable field, and started on all the driveways but two that we're having to use for temporary entrances and the planters. Jenny Lane, waiting for a TDEC permit on it to get started. Spring Hill Drive had the pre-con today, and Blair Road was paved Monday from Sam Ridley over to Laverne for the new High Point 24. So they'll be in next week to put the thermoplastic pavement markings and signs in.
Okay.
Do you have an estimated open date on the Lee Victory secondary entrance?
Like I said, we should be paving in next week, so 1st October should have it paved,
weeks.
let it cure out some, and then we'll get in and be doing the landscaping in October. So hopefully by mid-October, we should be ready to go for it.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Carl? Jeff? Tom? No? Or that nasty old tie again. Mike? Todd? Chief? Amber?
I do have a couple things I'd like to share with the council and
You just
the
can't
citizens
ask
tonight. First and foremost, I want to share a thank you that we received from Holly Potts at Dow Smith. A couple weeks ago, we were requested, Tom Rose and his folks did a great job of getting some equipment over to Smyrna Elementary School for the kids to touch and set in and act like they were driving a tractor, and you should have seen the smiles on their faces. They were having, and I'm not sure who was having the most fun, either the children or the two employees we had out there showing off the equipment to those kids. It was a big night, and they very much appreciated it, and I want to thank Tom and his group for getting that equipment out there, getting it cleaned up and looking good for the kids to enjoy. I was at a meeting this week, and a couple of items that came up I thought was interesting that I wanted to share with the council tonight. Tourism in the county, received these numbers from the Chamber of Commerce this week, is up 34%. Tourism in our county is up 34% over last year. Now, while that itself is a big number, I think what it helps us with is even more important. That 34% increase reflects an offset of taxes to each of our residents in the amount of $436 a house. So if those dollars weren't coming in, going into the coffers, we would have to raise taxes by another $436 in the county and in our municipalities to meet the needs and the services. That's a strong number. As you guys know, 5 years ago, I was working for the chamber. That number was in the 200s. So it's gone up quite a bit. So that's a great thing for us. I received a nice thank you note to the council and the mayor and staff from the Dixon family, one of our firefighters whose family had a passing, and they appreciated our thoughts and concerns and those kind of things. Also tonight, Mayor, you may going to be recognizing a couple of folks with us from Leadership Rutherford.
You go ahead, I was going to, I have them on
No,
my list.
well,
You go ahead.
I wanted to introduce, we have a young lady sitting over here to my right, Sandra, who is with MTSU tonight, and she's here enjoying our council workshop, so we appreciate you being here. And, you know, from time to time, we have MTSU students that come, and I guess it's a prerequisite for some of their classes to sit through this. I'm glad they chose Smyrna.
Great.
So thank you for being here. I'll leave the other two for you, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay? Also, I wanted to, at this point, you know, we had the Jeff Coos run Friday night. I'm not going to get into too much of that. But I wanted to, just tonight, from the town manager's perspective, thank our police department, our fire department, our parks department, our golf community over there. They helped us out with some golf carts and stuff to get us around. What a great race. It was just a lot of fun. Had a lot of people there. And again, Mayor, you'll talk about the numbers. But also wanted to recognize Casey Conard and Amber Hobbs and Todd and you, Mayor, for the work, along with these other departments that we put into this thing from the standpoint of planning and getting the sponsorships and those kind of things. There's a lot of work that goes into that race, and a lot of people have got their fingers on this. So thank you all so much for the work you do. The last thing I have, well, no, I have two things. You guys know I've got one at the end that I always talk about. But you'll see the Tennessee Run for the Fallen. This was a email that the mayor and I received, 2 weeks ago, Mayor? They reached out to us. It's a very unique and interesting situation. There's a flag that's being run across the country. It represents the 9/11 the fallen heroes since 9/11 for not only the military, but also for our firefighters and our police officers. They will be coming into Smyrna, and Chief Arnold has worked out a escort for them. They'll be coming into our community Saturday night about 4:30. They'll make a couple of stops, and let me tell you kind of how this run is working, because it's a really unique situation. Is they're running 136 miles across our state during this portion of the run, and they're stopping every 9/10 of a mile, and they're reading the names of one or two people that are represented in the fallen. Then they will be placing, with permission from homeowners, on their mailbox or on a light pole or something like that, at that mile marker, a small ceramic cross to represent those fallen. Once they come into Smyrna, there will be two stops, and then they're going to stop for the night. They're coming over to the Jeff Coos Memorial at 5:30. We will have, and we would want to invite the community, anybody that would like to come out and participate in this and be there for this. We're actually going to have a little ceremony where the flag that they're running with will be raised at the Jeff Coos Memorial for 9 minutes and 11 seconds. And then our honor guard that Chief Culberson is working with us on will then take the flag down and fold it in honor, present it back to them to pick up for the next day to finish their run. And then we'll be feeding the team, the running team, there in the park. That's one of the things they asked us if we could help them with. And I want to say thank you to Taylor Farms for stepping up. We'll be having some sub sandwiches and packaged salads and those kind of things, and that's the kind of food they wanted. But they'll then spend the night in Smyrna, and then the next morning, Sunday morning, they start 7 o'clock. They will then continue through Smyrna down Lowry Street. One of the stops will be in front of our fire department headquarters, and then they'll stop again at the Sam Ridley Bridge, and then they'll be going into Laverne. And again, the chief will have a rolling escort with them to make sure to block the road for them, but it won't be a road closure, it'll just be a block. By about 9:30, they'll be out of Smyrna, but it's a pretty unique thing. It's kind of a cool system. The flag, when it's presented Saturday night back to them, is they have their meal, and there will be a scrapbook type thing that'll be there for people to make comments, leave notes, any kind of little memento they want to leave. When this run is completed in 2024, it'll be across the whole country, and then this flag and all the information that's gathered across the country will then go into a museum and be there to represent the fallen soldiers, firefighters, and police officers and first responders based on the time of the war on terrorism. So a really cool thing. I'm glad they reached out to us. It's going to be a great event. And again, the community is invited to come out Saturday, September 24th at 5:30, maybe a few minutes before, at the Jeff Coos Memorial to take part in the service. The last thing I have is, folks, we're still battling the litter, and in fact, I think it's gotten worse lately. This past weekend, there was quite a bit of litter. I don't know if it's fallen off some of our garbage trucks or where it's coming from, but bags of litter on the roads. So, folks, we really, need everybody's concerted effort to keep our community clean and love where you live. I will give a shout out to our friends over at Seven Oaks. They have taken full ownership of that back road, and they are cleaning it up on a regular basis, and they're very proud that they're down to maybe 1 or 2 bags a week, where it was truckloads a week that they were hauling off back there. We've worked with them. We've got lighting up. We've done some mowing back there to open that area up. But over the weekend, I got an email, and somebody had dumped some commercial stuff, and that's one of the things they dealt with, everything from truckloads of shingles coming off of houses and stuff. Somebody's just too lazy to take it to the dump, and they're dumping it back there on the road. But we did find some commercial stuff back there this weekend, and they sent it to me, and I got it to Chief, and we actually have a detective chasing down who that culprit may have been. So we're taking it pretty serious. So love where you live, folks. Do everything you can to get the litter off the street. There's no reason not to keep it in your car until you get home. Put it in the trash can. Every service station has trash receptacles, so there's a lot of opportunity to do the right thing versus throwing it out the window. So I'll stop preaching. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Jeff?
Do announce that we did receive the deed to the future fire hall property on Hickory Grove, Jefferson Pike area from Mr. Hollingshead, which we greatly appreciate. And just while I had a moment, Chief, you've been good to me professionally and a good friend personally, and so gonna miss you.
Raquel?
I'll piggyback off of Jeff and say, Chief Arnold, thank you for all that you've done and your service to our community. Thank you. And last Saturday, I had the pleasure to participate in an actual golf event out at the golf course, and wanted to say about Hal and his staff, just how pleasant and professional you all were, and how everything went off really well, and just wanted to give you kudos for that. And lastly, I'd just like to tell Jerry, I have a speedy recovery. Hopefully you'll be back by our next meeting. And that's all I have.
HG?
Also, Chief, thank you for all the years you put in with us. We appreciate what you've done. Very glad you're going to stay local. We know where you live. Parking place for special events.
Heard the price of parking was going up.
Speaking of that, I might need to borrow that sign.
Today is my niece Caroline Hutchins' birthday, so I want to wish her a happy birthday, and her husband Stephen's birthday is tomorrow. So, also coming up this weekend, big event starts tomorrow night. We're having the Depot Days. It kicks off with the car show tomorrow night. That will be from 6 to 8:30. This is a car show where the cars pull in. They stay there until such time as the event is over. It is not a cruise in, drive and leave, but Front Street will be closed down. So it should have plenty of room. The weather looks really good, so I'm sure we'll have some really nice cars out there this weekend.
HG, the cars have to be in place by 5:45.
Okay, very good. 5:45. How many are you bringing?
2.
2. Okay. We look forward to
Well,
that.
3 if you count my dad.
Okay. And then Depot Days itself begins Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And once again, the Front Street will be closed off. And we're going to have food trucks there, y'all. Not everybody would like that. And many, many vendors, local artisans, beer garden, live music, inflatables for the kids, train rides for the kids. This event was originally sponsored with SIMA. As you can see, the SIMA train there in the middle of the display there. And it is the main fundraiser for SIMA. And it is in conjunction with Carpe Artista and, of course, the town of Smyrna, and all pulled together to get this event. It's a lot of fun. Come on out. One thing of importance is we anticipate having a large screen TV for the Tennessee football game. So, Mike, you can come watch that and wear your tie even. That's all I've got. Oh, be kind. Be kind. Shop local.
Are you done?
I could go on, but
Okay.
I'll stop.
Chief, thank you for your service. I appreciate everything you've done for the town and just the positive impact that you've made. And, I know that you'll continue to do so. I also know where you live, so I may come over and catch a Cardinals game with you here and there. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
Jerry's not with us tonight. He's had some recent surgery, so we wish him all the best in recovery, and we wish Patty all the best in dealing with a patient at home. So we hope he'll be I have a feeling Jerry's probably a pretty good patient. He probably does what he's supposed to.
It was kind of surprising to see a text from him just a few hours after surgery. He seemed to be on his game pretty fast, so I think he's probably doing fine.
Agreed.
Chief, thank you very much for your service. Mayor Esther said you've kind of built on the foundation that was there, but I think you've kind of set a bar that's going to be big shoes to fill. So you're going to be missed, and we may actually call you to whip in, whoever your replacement is. We might need you to help whip them into shape a little bit. I got to participate in the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament today. It was a good event. I'm not going to say much more about that, but it was a good event. Jerry, HG talked about the Depot Days car show, and I guess the only other thing is many of you may or may not know Randy Holt. Randy used to run and manage the adult softball league before me. I took it over from him about 10 years ago, probably. His son, Thomas Holt, who has played in our league as long as I can remember, as long as he's been old enough, passed away this week at 31. I think they're saying a cardiac event. He was a Nissan employee, worked here at the plant, and I think his wife of 14 months was 4 months pregnant. So just keep the Holt family, Randy and Cherry and his sister Megan, keep them in your prayers. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, his ceremony, his funeral was today. So just keep the Holt family, a longtime Smyrna family, in your prayers. That's all I've got.
Jerry, get better. I know he's probably watching, knowing Jerry, he's probably got us on, so healing from some back surgery, and we just wish him well. I know he wanted to be here tonight. A couple weeks ago, actually, we, as you probably have been through town, you've seen signs are up all over the place now, and Jerry, although he couldn't do much, he still wanted to come. He was still a trooper, didn't he, HG? And he coached us quite well, I'll give you that, and brought his big burly son, so, Tyler.
I was going to say Trenton is not big and brother.
Yeah, Tyler.
You're talking about Tyler.
And I do want to say thank you to property owners and businesses that have encouraged us and called us and given us permission to put our places out there and put ourselves out there. They've been awfully kind and supportive, and I appreciate that. Chief Arnold, I told you this was going to keep on until you were eventually gone, but I don't think you'll ever be gone. The only meetings you will miss are these. You will increase your meetings now with Lynn and your family and your grandkids and all that kind of stuff. And so, personally, I've told you this. I wish you well, and I mean that. And I'm not going to dwell on that too much tonight. But thank you for your service and all your years with our police department. I met a guy over at the run. I think, Brian, you might have been standing there, and HG might have been standing there. A gentleman named Elbert Cotton Walden. right at the end of the run. 22 years he served in the military, and he said he watches us all the time. He sits in his chair and he says, he told us everything we're doing. And, I mean, he was very supportive, but he keeps up with us. So, Cotton, if you're watching tonight, it was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you, and I thank you for your years in the military, sir. HG mentioned a car show, and Steve did, and there's another show a lot of you don't know about. We won't block traffic off, but if you want to come to the Sam Davis Home on Depot Days at 11:30, we're going to be showing off some dogs. Chief, are you helping me with that again this year? Yes, sir. So we'll be judging the Bark Bash contest out at Sam Davis Home, and it's always interesting. And I understand, Chief, they're having a talent show mixed in with it this year. I don't know what that's going to look like. We'll find out when we get there. But Chief and I we've had a good time doing that for several years. The Sam Davis people call us and ask us to come back, so we must be doing a pretty good job. I think that's all that I have, Mayor. Thank you all.
Great. A couple of items tonight. First, Brian hit a little bit on our Top Gun night run, but I want to thank everybody who was part of the event. I think it is very much a family-friendly event, one that people enjoy being a part of. You have your serious runners at 21 minutes? 22 minutes. And then you have others that are an hour and 22 minutes. But it doesn't matter which...
22 hours.
22 hours, whatever. It doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you're on. I think it is fun for all ages and sizes and ability levels. And this year we had 586 total runners, and that included our comp entries that went along with those that were sponsors. And I want to thank Sergeant Kaufman and the other members of the Army National Guard and the Navy for assisting in passing out the medals. It's something pretty special to go across that finish line and have someone there from the military passing out the medals. Thanks to Parks and Rec, the police and fire departments, and all the departments for everything you did. Special thanks to Hollingshead Aviation, the Smyrna Rutherford County Airport Authority, and the Smyrna Golf Course. Lil, thanks for cheering us on when we got over there to the airport. With approximately 514 paid runners at $50 apiece. For the runners, we had registration revenue of right at $25,700, and we had $72,000 of sponsorships for. So, pretty nice number of people getting behind the run and making sure that we can upkeep the memorial. So, thank you to everybody involved, and especially those on the committee. We have a good time in our committee meetings, but I think with those numbers, you can see a lot got done. So thank you to everybody involved. Next is the employer support of the Guard and Reserve Boss Lift that Brian and I got to participate in on Wednesday, September 15th. I'll be honest, I really wasn't sure exactly what we were in for on that day. It was a great experience. If you ever get that opportunity, I would highly encourage you to do this. It allowed us to go see when those individuals that are called up with the National Guard, exactly what they're doing, so we can come back and talk about to our employees and to those in our town exactly what they're doing for us when they're called up. So we have a picture there with Major General Holmes with the Tennessee National Guard, and the employer support of the Guard and Reserve is a Department of the Defense program. It was established in 1972 to promote cooperation and understanding between the reserve component service members and their civilian employers. In 2022, they observed 50 years of supporting the Guard and Reserve, and they have developed a special program to help educate the employers on National Guard activities. And one of the most popular programs is the Boss Lift that's done once a year. And I will tell you that the picture in the bottom right corner is on the way up there, and they shut the doors, and on the way back, they kept the doors open, and Brian was sitting in that seat, but on the other side, I was sitting in the back on the side, and it was a little
It
nerve-wracking.
was exhilarating and scary at the same moment.
Yes, so.
No.
They did that, no, they did that on the way up, and I told him we'd had lunch afterwards, and unless he wanted my lunch on the floor, he better not do that on the way back, because, well, some of y'all know how motion sickness I get, so. But it was a really, really nice event, so thank you to those individuals and volunteers who put that on. Next, Read to Succeed. Reading in the Schools Day was Friday, September 16th, and I was honored to be able to read at 5 different schools that day. I read to Miss Dugan and Miss Reeves' pre-K class at Cedar Grove Elementary in the morning, Miss Jenkins' kindergarten class at Smyrna Elementary, and then in the afternoon, Miss Mata's second grade at Smyrna Primary, and Miss Sarah Owens' third grade class at Stewart's Creek Elementary School. I was asked there by Emily Dennis and Janet Johnson's granddaughter invited me to come to her class there. And then Miss Tammy Bright, Mr. Bob Rickert, Miss Sherry Dameron, Miss Taylor Dietz, who is 4th grade at John Coleman, is where I got to finish off the day. And I know that Jerry and Patty Short also did Reading in the Schools Day. And I can't remember which school that they were at, but you also see the picture of our police and fire department at many of the schools that I went to. Members of our police and fire department were there reading as well. And it was, always enjoy getting back into the classroom. And one group had come up with some rules and regulations that they wanted us as council to enforce. One was, they wanted pizza to have to be served every day at school. They wanted new pizza restaurants in town. Everything revolved around pizza. So those were things they wanted us to look at. Haunting on Front Street will be October 14th and 15th from 6 to 9. It takes place in the Depot District on Front Street. You can join us for chili, ghost stories, haunted lantern tours, and good old-fashioned Halloween party for the kids. It is $5 a person. Ages 5 and under are free. Then we have Halloween in the Park will be Saturday, October 29th from 3 to 8:30 at Sharp Springs Natural Area Park. You can join us for hay rides, inflatables, games, pie eating contests, train rides, food vendors, and a haunted hospital that will be sponsored by TriStar Stonecrest. And I will tell you, I don't know how difficult y'all's contest judging is, but the judging for the Halloween in the Park is pretty stiff competition. So it's not an easy feat to do that. So, anything else? Oh, yes, I've got it written down right here. So we have 2 visitors with us today. Fran and Salil are here on behalf of Rutherford, Leadership Rutherford. And I know you all have to attend. Is it just one? Okay, so you have a lot. So we are glad that you all chose the Town of Smyrna workshop and hope you've learned a little bit. Y'all are both so involved that y'all always know quite a bit. So, but we appreciate what you do for the town and for going through this program. And I'll get to see you, I guess, in January when the mayors, when y'all get to meet with all the mayors from the county.
Fran should get some credit for, back credit for all the meetings she's been to before.
Why don't you call Stephanie and tell Stephanie that? So.
I'm going to post Salil in there. I know we've seen several planning meetings and stuff, so he's attended quite a
There
few
you go.
himself, so.
There you go.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes.
New display at the event center. Is that up and running now, Mike? Is it ready?
The new.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And what is actually called, Edison?
Thomas Edison.
Could you come up to the mic? That's a good point. We need to get that out to the community.
Mike, come to the mic.
It's the Thomas Edison exhibit. I know it's got a specific name, but I didn't bring that with me, but it's in my folder in the newsletter back there.
Sounds very like
Yeah, but the staff did get it put up, I think finished Wednesday. We've been doing some touch-ups, but it is open, yep.
Give a little brief that it's at our SOAC which
Yes.
is with the event center, and it is an interactive.
It is, yeah, and it's a lot of, engineering-related type things, mechanical, STEM-related, targets the youngsters and really the family. It's a really neat exhibit. We've had it twice, and this one's being sponsored by Middle Tennessee Electric and TVA, which is very nice.
And if they're members, then they get in,
Yeah, they get up under their membership.
right,
They
that's
sure
part of
do.
the membership, but you can buy a daily pass.
Yep,
Great. Anything else?
thank y'all.
Great. If nothing else, then we are adjourned.